G'day and welcome back for more Survival Impossible. And today is the day I'm going to build my personal crane so that I can do things with walls and high things and build stuff that is very difficult to do when you don't have a jetpack, and is the main reason I wanted to get rid of the jetpack, or at least nerf it harshly enough that it wasn't useful on planets. I have wanted to build stuff like this with good reason for a long time, and so I kind of I sort of generated my own reasons to build this sort of stuff. So, what is this crane going to be? It's going to be what I grew up knowing as a cherry picker or a bucket lift or one of those sorts of things. It's basically going to be a vehicle that can lift me up, standing freely, to at least the height of the corner of this building. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 blocks high would be ideal. If I can manage to weld at 6 blocks high, I should be able to do most of the stuff around this base with this, even if it's not the most efficient way of doing so. Now, I don't want to build a welder vehicle because that would require large conveyors and that's a bit of a hassle. I also want to have something that I can hand place blocks from, not just weld up stuff once it is placed. And while you can do that from a cockpit, I think this way is just more fun. It's more what I wanted to do, so I'm going this way even if it may not be the most efficient, because I think it's going to be better in some little ways that the other ones might be frustrating for me. Now for this build, I'm going to do something quite different. I'm actually going to show you guys a little bit of a view behind the curtain. And to do that, what I need to do is grab control of one of my second PCs that are attached to this game. If I hit F3 to see the online players, you can see there's Splitsie. You can see that there's Splitsie, Reginald, and Steve. The reason for these two other PCs having these names is related to a machinima series that I created with Capac called Light Echoes, which is over on our other channel. And I've used those names because they're sort of supporting characters in that series. But Reginald and Steve are my server PC and my laptop. So they are the PCs that I use to record the time lapses. What I normally do is jump into spectator with them and use the spectator camera to move around, use relative spectator to follow vehicles, that sort of thing. But today, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to bring Reggie all the way here. This is Reggie. Say hi, Reggie. There we go. So Reggie is my server PC, and I'm going to use him to record from a camera, from an actual camera. The reason I want to do that is I want a camera to orbit this lift build as I build it. So what I need to do to allow that to happen is create a faction, accept everyone, and then I will join on Reggie's point of view. So now Reginald is part of my faction. That means that he can go and sit over on the seat, and we'll be able to access the camera that I build and record from that camera. The reason I want to record from a camera, actually, oh yeah, you can sit in the seat. The reason I want to record from a camera is I want to set up a rotor to spin that camera around and orbit this build that I'm going to do. So, this is all going to cost me a little bit of resources, but I think if the shot works out, it is totally going to be worth it. So, put a rotor in the floor,
low.
Grind off the rotor part, realize that I've done something terribly, terribly wrong, because I now have no means to get rid of that rotor. That's bad. Oh no. That's so annoying. Rats. I don't want to build it up higher, but I want it... Oh, I want it connected to this grid. What am I going to do? Ooh, hello. Hold up. I have an idea. I go to rotor. Add small head. Did it work? Huzzah! I have a small head. So to speak, I guess. Oh, that came out all wrong. Let's go back. Rotor, and just make sure. I think it was this one, and rotor lock. So for those of you wondering why I get strong unknown signals in a single player game, it's because of Reggie and Steve. This isn't a single player game. So with the rotor in the floor, I can pop a piston on top of that So this piston's going to allow me to lift it up, much like the arrangement I have over there. And I'm not using that arrangement for the reason of wanting to do this different time lapse, but there's a longer term plan I have in mind with this time lapse. If this works, and it looks awesome, I'm going to build this camera setup permanently as part of my hangar, so that I can always do these with any small grid vehicle build I do. So I'll always be able to set up that camera to just track around nice and slowly and give us a really cool spinning shot of the vehicle, I hope. I guess we'll find out if it really does work. I came over here to get something and I can't remember what it is. Oh, that's right, construction components. So I want to get construction components because I'm going to need to have some light over here. Before I get ahead of myself, I need to build this camera rig. So for the camera rig, what I'm thinking I will do is use some interior wall to get myself elevated enough. That ladybug might be okay, but I'm going to play it safe. And leave. Well, I was kind of hoping the unknown signal that I've got would be in the correct direction for me so that I could run over to it and actually do something useful with this trip rather than just escaping. Oh no! Reggie's there! No! Oh, it's not going to work. I can't run away. Rats. I'm going to have to fight it. Oh, what a pity. Well, as long as Reggie's there, I'm kind of stuck. The things I do to try and get a good time lapse. Let's park there. Fine. And I'm going to change up the way that I've got this thing. I'm going to set this to recharge on and off. When I hop out, it's going to go on recharge so that it doesn't end up using up that battery at all. Please go past. Please no drones. Please. Be a nice ladybug. Okay, it looks good. We are safe. So, back onto building this camera rig. So what I've done here is build a really awkward scaffold. It allowed me to get up high enough that I was able to build this bridge over to put a rotor directly above the rotor that I'm going to build from. So its central axis is going to be in exactly the middle of the build that I'm about to do. Then what I want to do is extend that down and build an arm out to one side, drop it down a bit further, then put a camera on it, and that camera will be what Reggie records from. Hopefully it'll be able to center nicely on the build and we'll get a nice rotating view. To prevent too many weird lighting things, what I probably should have done was get the 1x2 flat windows and actually used them instead of the interior wall blocks up here. Ultimately, with this sort of thing, what I could do is actually weld up windows and then their shadows will be even better. But for the purposes of this build, I do want to still cheap out a little bit on the way that I do this thing. But it's the same idea for the arm that's going to stick out from this center rotor. So grab a nice little window. Just keep placing these out until it's far enough out that it's not going to get in the way. I think for the camera, having it around this height should be good. What? Why can't I place a camera on a window? That's weird. I was not expecting that. Alright, get rid of that. Maybe if I place that there, I'll be able to place a camera on it? Yeah. Weird. I had no idea you couldn't place a camera on a window. How have I not ever tried to do that? Or at least not tried to do that recently enough for it to have caused me a problem. Anyway, camera. There we go. Let's check it out and see what Reggie can see out of that camera. So jumping back to Reggie's point of view, camera, which I'm going to delete the name of and hit view. And because I have Digi's camera panning mod, I can actually move this camera around and look around. I don't have to be stuck with just the fixed camera point of view, so I can look down, zoom in a bit, and now all I need to do is weld up that rotor on top, start it rotating, and probably rename this grid so the grid doesn't have a name, which means it won't show up on the camera either. Info. Let's delete that, click OK. Now, if Reggie hops out of the camera and goes back to it, it's now blank. I now have a perfectly clean view. Excellent. And now, with the camera rig built, I can get on to building the actual thing. Let's get you out of the way. Because this is a time lapse, this rotor needs to turn very, very slowly. Maybe I'll go 0.02. So we're going at 0.02. Ow! Whoops. Missed the scaffolding as I came down. Anyway, now to get onto the actual build, starting with the batteries. So the way this thing's going to get laid out is it's going to be laid out at about the same sort of... What is going on with that wheel? It's going to be laid out pretty similarly to the food truck. Ooh, speaking of the food truck. Toggle that off. Stop using up power with that. The idea will be that if it's got roughly the same wheelbase as this, I'll be able to put a rotor on the back here or a rotor on the front and hook this lifter up to the food truck and use its solar panels to charge both. Since I can't really put solar panels or any easy charging mechanism on this thing. The other thing that's going to make it so the charge isn't as big an issue is that I am going to put 2 batteries on this thing. And 2 of the larger small grid batteries should be enough to keep me in power for a decent amount of time. Or at least long enough until it'll get stuck attached to the food truck for a while and I won't need to worry about it. Straight on the piston head, that way I can just grind off the piston head and replace it if I want to use this to build another vehicle. 2 batteries, end to end like that. Then I want 1 block there, 1 block there, followed by the same idea that I have on the food truck, which is these 2x1 slope bases, and then onto 3x3 wheels. So right and right wheels, 3x3s, and then left's this side. And it was pointed out to me that the Goofy 2, when I rebuilt its wheels, put them on back to front, which only changes the thread patterning on the wheel. It doesn't do anything other than that, but is still something that annoys me that I made that mistake. So before I move on to anything else, I'm going to weld up all of this, since having the batteries charge while I build is probably a good thing. Wait, seriously? 300 meters away? How can I not? I'm just going to run there. I'm not even going to bother getting a vehicle for that. Let's get some stuff. Okay. I think that thruster might be going off trying to lift this thing, because I believe this is one of those ones that tries to escape, but it was not effective enough. Fertilizer. Some space credits. Ooh, some med kits. Nice. That's not a bad haul. I was kind of hoping for like a silver level tool, because as it was pointed out to me, you could theoretically get enough silver for another survival kit if you went and collected enough of these pods that you got enough good tools to break down and get the silver from them. I don't think I'm ever likely to do that. Maybe if Capac was here, since compared to me, he's a person who loves these things. The food haul then was nice. I just discovered I have nowhere I can store those medkits, so they're going in the cockpit of the absconder. Right, so that's the main wheelbase of this thing. I'm also going to need to get a remote control on it, so I can move it around at a distance / in the cup bucket thing. So remote control, and I'll need an antenna too. Since I'm not going to have a seat on it, I'm going to have to control it while standing. I think I can pop the remote control there, and I can put the antenna on the rear here. And there's our antenna. Now I've got the ability to control this thing. At least I will once that gets built. What I'm trying to decide right now is whether I can get away with having the rotor set in this gap between the battery and the antenna, and if that'll have enough clearance on it to have the whole thing spin around on top of this, or if I'm going to need to build it up at this height. Obviously, the downside of building up that height is I've just made the whole thing 50 centimeters taller than it would otherwise be. I think I'm going to have to build it up higher. And I should just be able to go straight on top with another rotor like that. Then we'll start with building the lifter arm. It's kind of cool walking over here and seeing that camera rig out there. I really like it. Alright. Then this rotor is going to have some limits set on it. I'm going to set its lower limit to minus... Let's go minus 65 for now, and its upper limit to 65. So that should mean, because its zero angle is the direction I'm looking at the moment, it'll go 65 that way to 65 that way. So it'll have a 130 degree arc it can rotate in. The reason I don't want it to rotate further than that is obviously by placing it all the way at the back here, my pivot point is not between these wheels. So I'd really rather have the weight distributed over this front segment so that I don't flip the whole thing over. I will also be putting a landing gear on this just to make sure it's as safe as I can get, but just to protect myself from any accidental use of this thing while the landing gear isn't locked, I'd like to put it back there. I'd like to have that rotor limit set up. So, now it's time for some pistons. I need more steel plate, and I can probably put one more. So that's 5 pistons, which will get me up to 2 meters each. So that's 10 meters, which is 4 blocks directly up with just the pistons. So that's not too bad. Yeah, I should be able to, because this is already starting about a block high, that'll take me up to reaching the 6th block. Which is exactly what I set out to do. Now, while I've got this other rotor set up here, I'm going to get myself stuck on stuff. No! Oh no. Jumping and stuff is not working. Jetpack, please. Oh, thank you. Ugh. Get myself wedged on things. Looking at this rotor. It should go from 0, which you can see in front of me, anywhere up to, say, 70 degrees upwards. So lower limit will be 0. No, lower limit will be minus 70. Cool. Now I build a bucket off the front, one that I can walk into, and then it'll be able to lift me up. I just got to set up controls and things. Yeah, this is totally going to work. This is a design that I did come up with in a stream though, so I kind of knew it was going to work, but I wasn't sure if I was going to do something silly and forget how I built it, mess the whole thing up. So there's a question I'm almost certainly going to be asked in the comments here, which is, why haven't I piped these pistons? And the answer to that is size. These pistons are small grid. They have a small conveyor port, which means they can't even move things like steel plate through them. So the utility of setting up these pistons to be piped is very minimal, particularly as I would have to use advanced rotors to do so. And they would make this whole thing a whole lot bigger, so I don't want to do that. I would like to keep this compact, and the sacrifice for that is that I have to accept that I'm not going to have the ability to get cargo from the ground. I think I'm going to have to put something like this in here because of what I'm about to attach to this rotor. Yeah, so I'll pop that on the end, and then I'll put the rotor on, even though that's going to make that rotor a bit further offset from the center line. Okay, with that rotor there, what it'll be doing is making sure that the bucket remains level to the wheelbase. I can't really make it level to gravity, but I can at least make it level to the wheelbase so that if I park on a flat surface, I'll still be able to stand in the bucket and do stuff from it. So, bucket. I need a whole lot more steel plate to be able to build that. What I'm going to do for the first bit of this bucket is, I think it might be best if I just extend it out 1 block further. That way the part that comes down shouldn't collide with any of the rig here. Well, should it, or will it be okay if I go straight down there? It actually might be alright. Yeah, I'm just going to go straight down. Just trying to think about how I can make this look like it's sensibly attached. I feel like that kind of works. Because if I wanted to, I could also probably put that block in there. But I don't think it's needed. I think with those pieces coming down, I should then be able to have... Do I want to go with half-arm blocks, or do I want to use girders and use window blocks? Might use just the half-armors. I need to make this relatively big, the bucket, because if it's too small, I won't have room for all the button controls I need to actually get the ability to move this around properly while it's up in the air. Yeah, 6 blocks wide should be wide enough, though I guess perhaps it shouldn't be 6, it should be 7? So it matches up to the machine? Maybe? Kind of looks balanced though, despite being not in the middle. Just because of the way it comes off this rotor, it feels like 6 is about right. If I put an extra one on that side, I think I'm going to leave it with 6. Then a half armor block there. I'm going to lift this up a bit so that I can get underneath. And to make sure that the bottom is as thin as it can be, I am actually going to use windows. But I want to use the 1x1s. That means I need a bunch of girders. My plan with these windows is not to weld them up, but to leave them in their scaffolding state so that they look a bit more industrial, as I think that'll work for this build. Let's use these half slopes along here in order to get an attachment point for the windows without having to put anything else down. I've got to also be careful about how heavy I make this thing. Given I'm working in 1.9 Gs and I'm using rotors as my lifter mechanism, I can't make this thing too big. If I do, I'm actually at a real risk of putting myself in a position where it can't lift it up. And now, taking advantage of small grid glass. Oh yeah. Could have just as easily used an LCD here, but I have no reason to have LCDs on the floor. At least I don't think I do. I will probably realize that there might have been an advantage to putting LCDs on the floor for, say, a indicator for what is on what button once I start putting the button panel on this thing. Hold up. Yeah, don't want that 3 blocks high, just 2. The back plate can be 3 blocks high for allowing me to have stuff to ID what's on what, but these side walls will just be a bit lower. One of the advantages of having that rail at that height as well is that I can jump up on it. So if I'm willing to take the risk of jumping on it to reach something that I can't quite reach otherwise, it is an option available to me. Now, the other thing I'm going to do is pop windows across here so that I've got something to attach things to. Then I need buttons. So for the button controls, what I need is something that's going to extend and retract the pistons and stop them in position. So the way I'm thinking of doing that is to have an extend option and a reverse option and an on-off option. Then I also need something that's going to move these rotors. So rotate this rotor so that things go up and rotate this one so that the bucket stays level. So I should be able to, with that one, do the same sort of thing. Do an on-off switch and a reverse switch. Because I've got this row above on the backboard, I can put an LCD screen that explains what each button does. I'm tossing up the possibility of getting rid of this back row of glass here and at least putting a couple of small cargo containers in there. They're not going to be able to hold much, but having a little bit of extra cargo here would not hurt. Unless it gets so heavy that the whole thing can't function. And I think tucking them under here is probably the best spot for any cargo containers. And then that's basically it, unless I want to put a piston across here or something as a gate. But for now, I think I might leave it without the gate. Plus, I know me, I will just hurriedly do things and I'll never actually use the gate. Unless I'm in a role-playing mood. I don't have to use... Yes! Okay, cool. So, one of the designs I was sent in my Discord server by X27 was of a really cool bucket lift. which had LCDs that indicated which direction I was going to move in based on pressing of the buttons. It used a simple timer setup to switch which LCD was on, whether one showed up or down or left or right, up or down. And I could probably do the same here, because I could just color the buttons to indicate what they do. So the on-off button could be a particular color, and then the reverse button could be a different one, and just do that across all 6 buttons here. Would definitely be a valid option, I think. So I've given myself 500 liters of storage, which when my personal storage is 1200, that's not too bad of an extra little bonus. I could, if I wanted to, just put a bunch of O2 bottles in here so that I don't have to, well, so that I reduce the chance of dying up there. I've run out of O2 while stuck up the... Ugh. That is a problem. I think I will use at least one of them as just an O2 bottle storage. Put some emergency bottles in there that hopefully I'll remember to refill when I use them. So I think there's a real chance that I could get stuck up there and it takes me long enough to get down that I wouldn't be able to refill my hydrogen. Hydrogen? Oxygen. We'll need to contemplate this further. I'm going to go red for pistons. Red for the wheels. And I'm debating on red for the bucket. I'm going to leave it white for now. Maybe I'll do those bits red. I need to name each of these rotors and each of these pistons so that I know what is in what position. Rotor. So the bucket, lifting, and swivel rotors will all get braking torque. That's high. The torque will go high. The reason they need the braking torque to go high is that I'm going to switch them off when I want them to stop moving, as that's a nice quick way of stopping their movement. That is a little bit safer sometimes than rotor lock, because it doesn't snap it so hard, and sometimes I've found that rotor lock, there's a bit of an additional delay before the rotor will stop. So I quite like it this way. I will increase displacement on everything to maximum. Bucket and lifting rotor. Lifter rotors. They need to be a group, and then we'll go pistons and lifter pistons. Now I should be able to set up all my buttons how I want. Then detach this from the base and give it a try. I'll do the LCDs later, but for now I'm just going to set them up. Let's go toggle on off, then we'll have reverse. This one will be swivel, which will be toggle on off and reverse. And then the pistons. Now the pistons, you could have an extend and a retract button. So I could just, instead of having an extra LCD, put an up and a down for the piston, which is something I may do if it turns out that the reverse on-off thing doesn't work. But I do quite like the neatness of having just the 3 sets of buttons. So what I also need to do is go to the rotors, the lifter rotors, and give them a velocity. Do either of them have one yet? 1. Oh, bucket rotor needs to have limits. Bucket rotor should be at 0 and should swing down to 70. Minus 70? Yeah. 0 to minus 70 would be its direction. Oops, ran to the chair to get power and did not pay attention to the fact I was running out of O2. So that would turn the rotors off. Turn the rotors back on. Reverse. Oh dear. Might have a problem. No. Don't you not be strong enough? That's not okay. That's so bad. Can you really not work at all? Ah! Dang it. It's too heavy. I wonder if it's the glass. So the weight of blocks in Space Engineers is based off the components in the completed block, not in the incomplete block. So building stuff with more complex blocks is going to be much heavier. You're on. You're not rotor locked. Oh, that's so disappointing. How am I going to fix this? Might have to get rid of the cargo containers. Just keep grinding off pieces until it starts lifting. I don't need these glass pieces behind the buttons, actually. They are dead weight. Oh, rats! This is not okay! This is so annoying! Oh. And now you see why I didn't want to build something with too much cargo. Ah, here we go. It's working. Oh, no, it shouldn't have gotten out. Bad row. Whoops. Oh, jeez. Okay. So, it would be reverse, and then we go up, and reverse, and we go down. The bucket remaining level. Ish. Okay, so we got one cargo container for emergency supplies. I guess that's something. The lifter rotors, I'm going to change their velocity to 0.5. One is just a bit fast. What I'm after. Yes. And then I just hit the on-off, and I'll hang here. It works! It is not what I was planning, and it is very skinny. I'm going to play around with that, I suspect, over time to make this a little less terrifying. And we should be able to hit reverse and go down. I almost think like a little lip along the front might help as well. Cool. That's basically done. I just need a landing gear somewhere on it that I can easily lock to the ground. So what I'm thinking for that landing gear is a pop block there, then grab my landing gear somewhere, pop a landing gear under that. It doesn't need to be on a piston or anything like that. The landing gear can happily just sit off the side here, because what I'll do instead is drop the strength on the wheels, lock it to the ground, and then I've got a perfectly stable platform and I can manipulate the arm as much as I like, and it shouldn't tip over. Well, that was a wasteful build in some ways. I should have really tested it piece by piece rather than going for trying to build the whole thing in one go and chancing that it wouldn't be strong enough. I'm also a bit worried that if it's not strong enough when the pistons are retracted, it may fail when the pistons are extended. So what it may end up being is I have to bring the bucket almost up to vertical, then extend the pistons, retract the pistons and bring the bucket back down. Which isn't too onerous, but it's something that I would probably forget. Okay, time to detach from the base. So piston part, can I get the piston part? Not easily, let's raise this up a bit. Saw top piston part for there for a second. There we go. Cool. Hop on the bucket. Shift K. Control. Let's go into my info. Lifter. Okay. And might have a problem. Oh. I just saw that from Reggie's point of view. The landing gear just locked. Maybe we'll turn that from auto lock on to auto lock off. And I think I'm going to need to strengthen up these suspensions as well. Again, we'll go this time maybe in third person. I can see a bit more. Okay, control. Let's grab our wheels. Lifter, wheels. If you've got a name for the lifter, feel free to suggest it, because I have not got any good ideas. I'm really not sure what I want to do with it. I only need this to be about 25 meters for the broadcast, because I'm never going to be operating this from very far away. Well, I'm unlikely to. So fully depleted in 24 hours, that's plenty of time for me to sort out other things later. And off. There we go. Ooh, hold up. Something else with this one, which is power goes down to 15% and speed limit goes down to 15. I want this thing to go very slowly, if at all, when I'm driving it. There we go. I probably want to lift up the front a bit. Oh, it's not working. I think 5 pistons might have been too many. Right. Well, that That's frustrating. I think I know how I'm going to try and solve this problem though. It's convoluted, but it should work. And it means I won't have to rebuild this whole thing, which is the most important part. I put a block there. This is going to look a bit ugly on the back here, but until I come up with a better solution, I think this is my only real option. So, have that there. Then I should be able to place in that gap a rotor. Now, one of the things that's important to note with rotor placement in situations like this is it's got quite a big offset and it's too much. Oh wait, no, it's fine. What I need to do is get rid of minimize the displacement on this one. Then I'll be able to place a rotor over here. And you can see that I've actually pushed this a further block outward. The reason for that is you can see that placement box, the green highlighted box, that needs to not interact with the piston at all. So I had to go out an extra block further than I would have ideally liked to. I can then grind off its rotor part, put a block in here, and then put a rotor part on top of that block. Like so. And then attach this. And there we go. Now, once I weld up this rotor, I will be able to use its torque in addition to the other one, because their torque will actually work together. You can use multiple rotors to create extra lifting effort. And I think in this instance, I really do need it. Plus, this will mean I can do more stuff with the bucket later. Now, it is unfortunate that I have to have this whole big extra bit at the base of this thing. And there's something to keep in mind with this as well, which is you want to get these offsets between the two rotors correct so that they're not pushing against one another, as that can create some unfortunate phantom forces. So this rotor is going to need to have the opposite velocity to the other one, so minus 0.5. I'll set up limits on it later. I need to add it to the rotor group. Okay, so we should be able to now hit reverse. Toggle on, and it lifts! Look at that! Yes! Finally! It's working! Oh. Yes. Double rotor power. Ooh. Splitsie did a bad thing. Control. Let's drop strength, drop strength, drop strength, lock, lock. This has done a bad thing. I've done a very bad thing. My angles are too sharp. They go too far. Oh dear. What is going on? Ah, this is terrifying. Pistons. We need those pistons to not go so fast. Minus 0.1. I think we'll be fast enough. I need to get back into control and I need to lock this thing down. Let's drive. And then let's lock. And I will get out of that control. Back in first person. Let's swivel ourselves around. Oh yeah. Check this out. Turn around so I can look at the camera.
Energy low.
Ooh, don't walk off the edge. That would be bad. I'm not a huge fan of the mechanism down the bottom. Had I expected to need an extra rotor, I would have done that differently. At a later stage, when I have a construction kind of crane thing in the garage, I will probably set that up completely differently so that I basically would detach the rotor and I would move it to the back mounting piece in the middle so that the U shape would come forward from that rotor that it's mounted on. I think that'd make the whole thing a bit neater. But it is what it is now. At least it's functional. and it gives me an awesome view, especially when we go up. Oh yeah. Look at that! Maximum height. Oh, I'm so happy. This thing works. It'll take a little bit of learning and probably a little bit of finessing over time to get it to work exactly how I want it to. But for now, it is functional. It can get me as high as I need to go. So next time, I will be able to build walls. I was hoping to do that this time, but unfortunately, I have run out of time due to some
Energy critical.
small real-life considerations. Toggle off the swivel. Reverse. No. Reverse. Toggle off. Toggle on. Lower me down, since my battery is getting low. Oh yeah. I am super happy with this thing. Check that out. It's a thing of beauty, sort of. What I think I would do in the future is, when I've got the ability to, I might move the rotor attachment from on that rotor to this block directly in front of me. That way that U-shape is directly centered. I could play around with how the piston's mounted in here as well. Do a few little bits and pieces like that once I have some crane apparatus to move stuff like this around. But for now, even though it looks ugly, this thing is functional, so I don't really want to mess with it. Next time, I will get on to welding up these walls. So there's all that, and plenty more to come.
Energy.
Oh! Energy, bad. Bad. Yeah.
Energy low.
So there's all that, and probably plenty more injuries to come, and I and Reggie will see you then.